for watching Live with Ms Steph. Did you know that yesterday marked the official start of fall? But here's the science behind it. We're going to talk about the science behind the autumnal equinox, as well as some other things. We are going to check out how we can mix some water with some cornstarch and make something super and awesome. So let's get into it, and you're going to want to stick around. I'm Stephanie E. Farmer, the founder and executive director of Triple F Empowerment Inc., and we run Ms Steph Science Club. So let's go ahead and get into your weekly Science Club news and some information. Thank you so much for watching. Hello, hello. James Dave 1151. I'm well today. How are you? So we're going to get into some science. So yesterday, as I was saying during my lunch, yesterday, September 22nd, was the autumnal equinox, and meaning it's the official start of the fall season. And to answer your question and to also just give the information, so we're here in the northern hemisphere. We are in Harlem, we're in New York City, and so on September 22nd, day and night are nearly the same. So a lot of times we notice different things and we're like, yeah, it's the start of the fall, it's the start of spring or whatever. There may be some other information that you've had over the years, but since we're a STEAM education organization, it was important to me to make it super clear to you all what that really means. What does the start of fall mean scientifically? It means day and night are essentially equal. All right, so, and reminder of how Earth's movement affects our daily lives and all that type of stuff, right? So especially here in New York, we're going to start to have shorter days. And so, yeah, shorter days, y'all, that's what it means. All right, so as far as what we're going to be making today, we're going to do a little oobleck, all right? James, I'll definitely keep in touch with you and we'll be chatting. But oobleck is our science experiment for today. Now, y'all should know that I'm particular about calling things an experiment, So, because again, I'm a natural scientist. And so it's important for us to understand that just because we're mixing some things together doesn't mean we're doing what's called a controlled experiment. We might be experimenting and kind of just seeing what happens, but it's not a controlled experiment. All right. So for today's activity and for our science fun, thank you so much. We've got several people on. Hi. I'm going to show you my tips and tricks about doing oobleck at home with your young scientist, right? So anywho, first things first, materials. So there are the chemicals that we will be using. And then there are the tools, which the tools, by the way, technically do have a chemical composition, just FYI. Everything is a chemical. There are human-made chemicals, and then there are naturally occurring chemicals. But all that to say, cornstarch is going to be your main material that you're going to put in. You're going to need some type of bowl. All right, something to stir with. You can use a craft stick, you can use a spoon. I've got one of those fun little silicone spoons and all that today. Shaving cream is one of my tips and tricks to make it kind of even more fun and interesting. Food coloring is another make it interesting. Major tip, remember last week's tip? Same thing here. I've got a nice child-friendly tray and I have got it covered. This will make cleanup so much easier. Trying to wash oobleck off of a thing is a pain, and no one needs to have to do that. And then our other major ingredient, there are two things that must be in it for it to be called oobleck, for it to be considered this non-Newtonian fluid, this famous non-Newtonian fluid that you may see PhD level physicists like trying to run over and stuff for fun. cornstarch, and it does need to be corn starch. Don't get corn flour, corn starch, okay? And you'll see what it's like. It's very fluffy kind of powder. And then we need some water, regular water. Do not add hot water because that starts to change the behavior of the chemical, and you will get something more like pudding, which is fine if you're trying to do like an edible paint, an edible finger paint for a very, very young child. But don't use hot water. Regular. All right, so going into ratios, we're going to drop this down, so that you can see. Thank you so much for watching and joining. Once again, I'm Ms Steph from Triple F Empowerment Inc. We operate Ms Steph Science Club, and we are based right here in Harlem, and we do lots of things around the community. And today, I'm giving you all, during our fun 15 minutes or less time together, our weekly highlights of the news, I'm giving you all some important tips about making oobleck at home and doing the perfect oobleck. All right, so the first thing that I like to do, I like to put the cornstarch in first. You notice I have my, covered tray and all that. I'm gonna lift this up so that the comments aren't interrupting. All right. So if you wanna measure it, your ratios that you're gonna start with, you want twice the amount of cornstarch to water. Now, remember, I'm going to add a little spice to things today, all right? So you can add your food coloring to the water first to make sure that, what's going on with this food coloring? Notice I close it and move it away from my face. More tips and tricks, okay? Food coloring to the water so that it mixes well and it distributes, all right? Notice I did not measure that, but again, these things that let you know it is not a controlled experiment. Real quick, okay? This is going to come together super fast, all right? About that much. It's good. Remember, you're shooting for, you can measure it definitely. I've been doing this for years, and so that's why I don't have it quite measured. But you're shooting for a 2-to-1 ratio. 2 parts cornstarch, which is this white powder stuff, 1 part liquid, your water, okay? Oobleck is made from cornstarch and water. And you notice already it's difficult for me to stir. So what makes it a non-Newtonian fluid? It doesn't behave like Newtonian physics says it should behave. So when I press on something that's a fluid, that's a liquid, it should be easier to go through, okay? When I press on it, when I add pressure. But what happens with this is the opposite thing. As you can tell, it's difficult, okay, for me to stir the more firm than I am with it. But when I stir, when I'm gentle with it, you notice that? It's easier to stir. So moving forward with this activity, things that you can do with this, right? So once you get it mixed up, you're kind of good to go as far as like the science of it and a discussion that you can have. There's all kinds of stuff. I have a bunch of different videos on Oobleck. So there's different conversations that you can have with your students, with your child. You see how it pours a bit. But when I stir, they're going to notice stirring it is difficult. And so that's the fun. And that's how you know that it's been made properly. I'm actually going to add a bit more cornstarch because what I'm getting is an effect that is because the cornstarch packaging has already been opened. It's been sitting out since summer camp. Well, not sitting out, but it just has it's been unsealed since summer camp. And so what happens is that there's additional moisture that is captured by the cornstarch molecule. And so because of that, you actually need a bit more cornstarch powder to the amount of liquid that's been added. All right. So now moving on. Again, this is your 15 minutes or less of your weekly Science Club news. We already chit-chatted about the science, the scientific definition of the autumnal equinox, meaning day and night are the same length. Okay, and in the northern hemisphere, we're going to have now today, right? Yesterday was the equinox. Today, we'll start to notice that the days will be shorter and the nights will be longer. Whereas in the southern hemisphere, it's the other way around. Yeah. All right. So things that can be done with this now. This is why we have our tray. You can do a couple of things. You can pour it out. They can pour it out. They, as in the students that you're working with, they can play with it. They can touch it. You notice how if I touch it quickly, very little of it comes off of my hand. But if I let my hand kind of sink in it, right? See? So it becomes a bit of a sensory experience. Another thing that I like to do with it, shaving cream is fun. We add shaving cream to slime. We add shaving cream to our acid-base reactions. Why not add it to our oobleck? So you can take a portion of the oobleck out, which I'm not going to do today because, I mean, it's just you and I, right? You can add some shaving cream, and that then changes the texture of it. See, again, it's difficult for me to stir. So non-Newtonian fluid, meaning when I press on it, it's actually harder to stir than it should be. All right. Okay. And I can pour a bit out again. This is Ms Steph coming in for your weekly Science Club news. I can play with it. So see, one of the things that's kind of cool about adding the shaving cream that your students will start to notice is that also changes, right? Because shaving cream is another type of fluid. So you actually, for the shaving cream formulation, you need more cornstarch. Okay. And it's not quite 3 parts to 1 part liquid. It's more like 2.25 parts to 1 part liquid. So anywho, this has been your oobleck activity highlights, things that you need to keep in mind, right? Number 1, you must have your cornstarch. Any brand will work. The brand, it doesn't matter, okay? You must have your cornstarch, and you must have your liquid, your water. This is very specific. It does need to be water. It doesn't have to be colored purple. I mean, you know me, I like purple. It doesn't have to be colored purple, but it must be water to be considered oobleck, for it to behave in certain ways. Other tips and tricks, like I said, you can add some shaving cream for fun. You can also add a little bit of baby oil. That gives it a different texture. Make sure that your water is room temperature or slightly cold. Do not add hot water to your cornstarch to try to get oobleck, because you will get a different thing. You will get something more like a kind of a pudding or a gravy texture, which again can be used, but that's not giving you oobleck. Things that I like to do: cover my tray. This is the thing I've done lately. It cleans up super fast. All right. So that's your oobleck science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics activity, right? That's our activity, our featured activity for the week. But let's go ahead and really close this out with a reminder for Saturday Science Club. It starts October 5th. We've been getting a lot of response on Saturday Science Club. Shout out to my littles that have grown up and become old enough to be able to join us on Saturdays, okay? From 12 to 2. Even if your family is not available for the launch, just be advised that from October to May, October 2024 to May 2025, I told you I'm a scientist, so I'm particular with stuff. From 12 to 2 p.m. We're going to be meeting at Wadley on 114th Street. Literally the largest building on the block, traditional East Coast schoolhouse. And yes, I said schoolhouse, so how old am I? But anyways, but all that being said, we're looking forward to you all coming. If you're not able to join us on the 5th, still reach out. Send me a DM with your email, your child's name, so I can put y'all down for future sessions to make sure that you are going to get our information. So once again, this has been Live with Ms. Steph. I am Stephanie E. Farmer, the founder and executive director of Triple F Empowerment, Inc. We make science fun, and we do several different services for the community. We've got Saturday Science Club, which I've already letting you know about. We have our summer program. We also have Traveling Science Teacher. Traveling Science Teacher is where I come to your location. I do these fun things with your students. And that's under a contract basis. And we do still have some time slots available for that, but you need to talk to us very, very, very soon. Okay? And yeah, that's pretty much it. For now, stay tuned. Next week, we'll do another activity, and next week, I'll tell you more news about the different things that we've got coming up and the other services that we do provide, because there's even more. Thank you so much for watching, and have an absolutely wonderful day.